Hello, hello, my brothers and sisters. This is Garrett Bake, your brother in arms, and welcome to another episode of The Tactical Businessman. Today, I don't have a topic. I'm going to start with a quote. This quote is very interesting. If you don't give someone the information that they need, they will make up something to fill the void. I feel like I should have that dun 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 music, So if you don't give someone the information they need, they will make up something to fill the void. I want to share with you a story. I like to call this one, Who Forgot to Turn on the Lights? Now, when I was working undercover, it was something that I really enjoyed. It was oddly satisfying. Playing a game of, trying to outwit the bad guys, if you will, and winning. Well, just like you, I love to win. And what makes winning more exciting? Well, winning with friends, right? That's why we're so attracted to sporting events like baseball or football or basketball or video games or things like that. When I'd been in narcotics for a few years, I kind of started to figure things out, just like in any area of life, right? In business, your first couple of years, you're still swimming around trying to figure things out, but eventually you settle in and you figure out how you need to do things. Same thing with marriage, same thing with your body. Like it takes a few years to figure things out. Now, as you start to figure things out, you know ahead of time the questions are going to be asked next, or what's going to need to be created, or those type of things, so you can start to look down the path and say, okay, what am I going to need next, right? Now, in this case, I knew what information I needed to get ahead of time. I knew what types of cases that the higher ups, my chain of command, were comfortable with and which ones they weren't. I knew the situations that I was comfortable in and the ones that I wasn't. I'd picked up the lingo, the slang, if you will. So things were good right now. One particular night, my partner and I were following up on a case. So we'd been buying meth from a Hispanic male, right? And in order to try and identify his source of supply, well, we upped our order to an ounce of meth. Now, an ounce of meth is quite a bit. And we would do this on our cases, right? Because we weren't just interested in arresting the low-level drug dealer. Most of the time, they were simply selling to make enough to buy so they could use themselves. We were more interested in the people who were supplying the drugs to the market. So we had upped the quantity of order. We knew that if we asked this low-level supplier for this larger quantity for an ounce, that he was going to have to call his supplier to come and we'd be able to identify him, right? We were hoping that would get us what it was that we were looking for. So after a series of text message and phone calls, we agreed to meet close to where he was at. And he told us it would be a little bit of time, but he told us that he could get it done. Now, here's the problem. The problem was where he lived was down an alley. And this alley was really hard to see because there weren't a lot of lights, a lot of street lights. This was a poorer part of town. Well, we thought we'd set things up right. And he called us back and asked us if we could meet. We told him, hey, there's a convenience store in the corner. Let's meet there. And that was where we had normally met. Well, because this was the larger quantity, he didn't want to go walking out with that amount of drugs. So he said, no, come to this back alley and I'll meet you there. So by the time we agreed to meet up with him, it was dark. So I talked to my boss, got the clearance to go into the alley with my partner. Now, I knew it would be difficult for them to see what was going on because it was so dark, but we had audio surveillance equipment so they could at least hear what was going on. And then also my partner would be texting back and forth with someone so they would know what was going on as well. So we had a couple different means of communication to make sure that they would know that we were all right. So we go into this back entrance to this apartment complex and we parked. And like I was saying before, there weren't a lot of street lights. The ones that did exist hadn't been shot out yet. So it was really dark and we backed into this spot. It was crazy though, because it was like entering a different world. It's that part of town where the mattresses are piled up outside everywhere, where you see people walking, but you don't really see their faces because they're in the shadows. The dumpsters are overflowing. There's broken down cars on jacks in the parking spaces. So it was this different world that we'd come into. Well, about 30 seconds later, this suspect appeared. He came walking out of the darkness. I don't even know where he came from because I couldn't see anything. It was too dark. So he came up to the car. We exchanged greetings. And during this conversation, he told me that he was still working on getting the drugs and that it was going to take a few more minutes. So I was like, cool, yeah, whatever. And we sat there in the dark. Now, mind you, I've got this audio device, so I'm relaying information by me talking over this audio device, and my partner is sending text messages. Well, the crazy part is we're not hearing anything back from them. Now, we got to this point, like we're sitting there and the small talk kind of goes away. And there's not that much left to say, right? And so we've got our windows down and we start to see that there's people, right? There's people kind of wandering around and we can't really see them, but it's more like we can sense them. So they were like lurking. And you know in your stomach and things just don't feel right? Well, it wasn't really feeling right. So not even 30 seconds later, both my partner and I, we have our guns out. We fully expected to get robbed. We fully expected that there was going to be some type of confrontation, and that was it. And we kept sending out these messages, and I kept talking, but we weren't hearing anything back. Now, this got to be about 5 minutes in, and I swear to you, it must have been, it sounded or felt like it was 30 to 45 minutes, but it was 5 to maybe 10 minutes later. He comes back, and he was totally cool. He was excited. You know, he gave us the drugs. We gave him the money. We did a little fist bump handshake, and we quickly left the area. And as we're driving out, we're looking at each other like, what the hell is going on? Like, nobody contacted us. We don't know what's going on. Like, are they just not listening to us? What's going on? And as we turn the corner and get out of there, like, we were laughing in relief on one side because we were still in one piece. But as soon as we hit the main road, our phone started blowing up. Like literally blowing up. I must have had like 35 text messages, about 20 some odd missed phone calls. And I realized that something was wrong, right? So I called up the boss, called up the sergeant, and he's yelling and screaming, what's your problem? Why weren't you answering? And why weren't you communicating? And why? And all these things. And I'm like, whoa, time out. I said, we were trying to. And he said, well, you're so-and-so, your partner, he wasn't sending messages. I'm like, whoa, yeah, we were. I was watching him do it. And we quickly regrouped just down the road with our team. And as that's happening, all these messages now start to flood in on both sides. And we realized that what had happened is we'd entered this dead zone. And once we'd entered the alley, for some reason, and I couldn't tell you why, we'd lost all communication with our team. No cell phone, no audio, no nothing. My boss had sent a guy in to look for us. And because it was so dark, he couldn't see us because we'd backed into the space under the covered parking. Like, he couldn't see us. So as this world feels like it's falling apart around us, we just kind of sat there in the dark. Now, here's the interesting part. If you remember when I first started, I posed this to you. If you don't give someone the information they need, they will make up something to fill the void. And when you think about this is exactly what was going on. We're in our own little world there, dealing with what we can see and feel that's going on around us, trying to relay information out, and it's not getting out. So to us, we think that, well, they're fine, they're doing whatever, but they can hear what's going on. If it was something important, they'd call us or they'd text us back. So we're getting nothing from them. Their side, their responsibility is to make sure that we're still alive, but they're not hearing anything from us at all. Like nothing. No voice, no audio, no text message, no nothing. So they send somebody in, they can't find us. Like, so they're freaking out on their end. And again, this was probably 10 minutes max of time that had passed, but it seemed like an eternity. And because they weren't able to hear or see what was going on, in other words, they didn't have the information that they needed, they made up stuff to fill the void. And in this particular line of work, right, in police work, you always think worst case scenario. They got robbed. They got shot. They got tied up. They got kidnapped. They got. These things are going wrong. And he was ready to call in the helicopter, the patrol guys, like everybody he could to come. Literally, we were like a minute away from that happening because they couldn't get a hold of us. So the question I have for you is, where is this happening in your life right now? Where people are freaking out because you're not giving them the right information, or you're not giving them any information at all. Think about this. It's going to happen in one of two primary areas. It's going to happen in your relationship, or it's going to happen in your business. And it could go one of two ways. Think about this. When you come home from work and your wife asks you, how was your day? And you tell her absolutely nothing. What is she supposed to think? I don't know. You tell me. See, we as men assume that our wives know exactly what's going on. But they don't. They don't know. And so we start to complain about the fact that we don't have the relationship that we want. And the truth is, we don't have the relationship that we want because our ability to communicate sucks. And so the people around us are left to do nothing but fill in the gaps, fill in the holes with whatever it is that they think. And so tell me if you've experienced this. You're typing on your phone and your wife's like, who are you talking to? And you're like, nobody. Well, it could be a nobody, but because you withhold the information from her, what does she think? Well, she thinks that you're cheating on her. She thinks that you're texting another girl. Are you? I don't know. But how do you alleviate that? You give her the information. See, the same thing with your business. It could be business partners. It could be clients. It could be investors. It could be higher ups. It could be subordinates. But when you withhold information, people will always fill in the gap. And they'll usually fill in the gap with worst case scenarios. So if we're talking about business partners, for example, your inability to communicate whatever it is that your area or the things that are going on in your particular area to the other business partners, what are they going to think? That you're slacking, that things are falling apart, that they have to cut you. And this has happened with some of my clients, right? The inability to communicate properly caused a breakdown in the business and almost the failure of the business. You think about, again, your relationship. There's so many things that can go wrong in a relationship based on what? Based on misinformation. Oh, he doesn't love me anymore. Well, why do you say that? Well, because he doesn't tell me what's going on. He stays late at work. That must mean that he's going out with a girl or something. And then how does she react when you come home? Well, she gives you the cold shoulder. Why? Because you gave her the cold shoulder. And so she then filled in that gap of information. I don't know what's going on with my husband right now with, oh, well, I guess he must be cheating on me. Or I guess he must not love me anymore. And all you're trying to do is be like, hey, cuddle up with her. And she's like, no, get away from me. And then you get pissed off. All caused by what? All caused by this lack of information. So while you may feel that you have complete control of everything that's going on in your space, your inability to communicate that to others is actually causing it to implode. So consider what your life would be like if you were clear in your communication. If you were able to relay information to those that matter the most, be it your business partners, your subordinates, your partners, your investors, your clients, be it your wife, your kids. This can go any of a number of ways. Now, how do I relate this to my personal life? For the longest time, I was that guy. I was that guy who wouldn't communicate clearly with my wife. She didn't know what was going on at work. In fact, I can say this. There's still times that I bring up stories from the past that she looks at me and she's like, you never told me that. And who feels like an idiot? Well, that's right. I do. So if you want a better relationship, don't leave people in the dark. If you want a better business, don't leave people in the dark. Because remember, if you don't give someone the information that they need, they will make up something to fill the void, and it will usually be worst case scenario. All right, that's all I got for you today. As always, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next one.